Danielle Striker, our guest today. Danielle, good to have you. Thanks for being a high roller.
Namaste. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You had a very serious motorbike accident a few years back. Can you tell us about that?
I did, yeah. Back in the late 80s, I was driving my motorcycle, and an animal jumped out in front, and I just basically fell off the motorcycle, and my left knee got wrapped around the handlebars. So it was a very extensive injury, and I was in a wheelchair about almost 2.5 years after that. And I was at the time I was a Broadway dancer, and that was the end of my career.
That's what you call a bad beat in life right there.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny you mention that, because that bad beat moment that really occurred for me was an out-of-body experience. Like, now they call them near-death experiences. But even though it was a bad beat, maybe because I just sort of have a very optimistic attitude in life, the experience that I actually had kind of a very big impact on my life. It sent me out of my body at the moment, and I really kind of realized that, we are not just a physical body, a manifestation here on this plane. We really are energy.
You mentioned in the book you believe that you're like a wave of frequency when you had this out-of-body experience. Did you come back with an entire new perspective?
Yeah, because I do. I actually believe, and this is after many years of kind of dealing with what actually occurred in that one moment. And I've been studying a lot about quantum science, and I know a lot of people are very interested in this space. But really, we are all energy. Everything in the universe is energy. And my experience of having this out-of-body occurrence was that I was really profoundly one with the universe, and all of time stopped, and it was really an experience of lightness, of some people call it spirit, but I call it pure light energy, that it's really connected to everything in the universe. And I had that experience once, and then I had never had it again until many, many years later. And so I had always kind of had an intrigue around, are we really spiritual beings in human form? And what is that really about?
Okay, so you've combined that part of your life and that interest with your other interest, poker, because first of all, when did you get interested in poker, and how did that develop?
Well, oddly enough, my accident was in '86, and about 20 years went by, and I had a friend in San Francisco said, hey, you're from Vegas, let's go play some poker. And I had no idea how to play poker at the time, and we went to Bay 101 up there in San Jose, and just had a really great time, and didn't know what a small blind and a big blind was at all. Just started playing, and actually won like the first time out. Complete beginner's luck.
Right? Yeah, you won a couple $100 that night, didn't you?
I did, the first time out, and I thought it was really great because you could eat dinner at the table and have your dinner like totally factory sponsored, by somebody in another seat.
So you're absolutely hooked.
Hooked.
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker. And so, make a long story short, another friend of mine had invited me to a birthday party where we did, a poker thing. Then later in Vegas, just had won like another short buy-in and had won a couple $100, and I was hooked, like you said. And so I finally decided, if I'm going to learn how to play poker, I have to find a coach, and so that's what I did.
That coach was Tom McEvoy, a former guest of the show. I mean, you introduced us. How did that relationship develop? He became more than just a coach, right? I mean, he's a good, close friend now.
Yeah. Very good friend. Oddly enough, I decided I was going to find a coach, and I looked up on Google. I think I typed in like poker coaches, and when Google popped up, it had Tom McEvoy's name, and he had written 14 books on poker. And I thought to myself, 14 books on poker? Is there that much to know? I read every one of his book, and I've read about 350 books.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and have been very fortunate to study with most of the authors in those books as well. But at any rate, I picked up the phone, and it turned out he was 2 blocks from my house. So I picked up the phone and called him, and I said, I want to learn poker. And he said, well, I teach poker. And he said, why don't you come over right now, and I'll teach you how to play. I was really, almost kismet, right? And this is why I think, life is very interesting. You never know where you're going to wind up. I met him, and he was just lovely and really just had so much integrity and was very straight and very honest, and not what I expected at all. I had this sort of expectation of a poker player, kind of like in Rounders, right, the movie. And he was nothing like that. He was highly analytical, extremely bright. And how I learned how to play was literally watching him. He was the first poker star on PokerStars, and we played online. And then I would learn online, and then I would race down to the casino, because I live in Vegas, and then play live. And so I was playing like 60 to 80 hours a week at one point. And now we're great friends, and I'm actually writing a book with him, which I'll tell you about later.
He's a very accomplished guy, 83 world champion, a multiple bracelet winner, elected into the Hall of Fame this year, class of 2013. So you've got a good coach there and a good friend. What has he taught you? I mean, there's a lot of poker coaches out there, and they've all got various theories and strategies, and quite frankly, they're all pretty good. But what has he taught you about poker and life outside of basic strategy? I mean, what about life has he taught you?
So the main thing, and this goes back to the accident, was that, if life doesn't teach you or teach me to slow down, that was really the main lesson. 20 years later, when I met Tom, the very first thing he said to me was, slow down. And for me, that was the life lesson and the poker lesson. And the epiphany that came out of literally just slowing down for me was it led me to meditation, which is what led me to Poker Samadhi. And Samadhi, just so you know, means a divine state of consciousness. And I wound up starting to meditate and doing creative visualization. But really, when I was slowing down, I noticed that when I slowed down at the poker table and I started to observe not just myself, but others, I was able to see things and sense things that I had never seen before. Because my automatic operating speed, and what I guess we call your automaticness in life, mine was super high energy, go, 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 no slowing down, very aggressive and high energy. And when I'm at the poker table, I'm much different. I'm very quiet, I'm very observant, and I would have these moments of just incredible clarity where I was very much, and I still am very much in what some people would call the zone. That's the blissful state, right? That's the Buddha state. And the reality, though, is that you ask people, and I've asked a lot of people, Doyle Brunson says, there is poker ESP. Jennifer Harman talks about the choices that she makes at a subconscious level. And I think it's that when you're in the zone and you're completely relaxed and very free, and you've gotten into that kind of state, that samadhi state, and this is what prompted me to write the book, but when you're in that state, you literally can suck the cards right out of the deck. You have that, goes back to that energy of knowing what's coming. It's a different state of beingness.
You also realized along the way that poker is really symbolic of life, right? I mean, the way people play, the way they live, pretty much the same. Can you elaborate for us?
Yeah, a lot of times what I'll do is I will, on purpose, try to get somebody on tilt, or if someone else has gotten them on tilt, really take advantage of that. There's a lot of interesting research, brain research about, and Joe Navarro, I don't know if you know who he is. He's
the FBI guy.
Yeah. He's also a dear friend of mine and even wrote a testimonial in the front of my book, but he talks about the amygdala, and the amygdala is a part of your brain that, is a flight or fight response. And when you see people go on tilt, you see how they really are in life. You can see how they react. And oftentimes, when someone goes on tilt, whether I put them on tilt or whether someone else does, you get to see who they really are. And this amygdala in our brain that actually controls the flight or fight response in us just takes over. And you'll see people, they lose their bankroll capacity, they lose their capacity to think for quite some time after that. And then they're also stuck in that hand. They're not even present to the next hand or the next hand that comes up because they're reacting to what occurred in the past. Another one is just how people are being, just their nature. And you see that at the table. You see how some people talk to other people, some people don't, the way people sit. I mean, for me, I would say the biggest advantage is in feeling, and it's funny because we don't have a lot of women in poker. We do. I mean, it's growing, but a lot of the women that I talk to, like Jennifer Harman, who talks about this subconscious, right, response that she has, we tend to, I'll just say, women, we use a lot of our intuition and feeling. And feeling, it does not occur on the mathematical, analytical side of the game. It's another place. And so for me, when I play poker, I use a lot of the tells in the other players to get a really good sense of what's really going on. And it's at a subconscious level. And I've noticed when I slow down, I get those kinds of impulses more frequently than I do, obviously you can do the math, but those are the ones that are most powerful. And usually those gut decisions, those very quick decisions, are right.
This sounds like it's really become a way of life for you. I mean, you got introduced to Poker Samadhi and some other teachings, and then you just went with it.
Yep. What happened was I started researching Hinduism and Buddhism, and when I found Samadhi being that state of divine consciousness, what I did was I decided to take that part of the culture, if you will, and I created these things called Poker Dharma. And the Poker Dharma, which in Hindu is laws, those laws are essentially all of this that I have read in these 350 books. They're like little grabs, right? And what happened was I actually wound up writing 1,000 index cards, and I used to read these little, grabs from HELLMUTH or John Borhaus or Tom McEvoy or TJ Cloutier or Mike CARO. The list goes on. And I would study those before I went to the poker table, and I called them my Poker Dharma. And then the ones that I actually would work on were my mantras, my poker mantras. And so it just sort of came together. And the first thing I did was I wrote a poker app, and there's about 1,000 of these for the iPhone. I wrote an app called Poker Samadhi. It's available, on iTunes. And I literally just had no place to store all of these grabs, and I couldn't drag the books with me. So I said, well, there's got to be an app for that, and there wasn't, so I wrote one. I think for me, it's working on those mantras, and what it does is it gets me in the zone. However one prepares to come to the table is the way, whatever works for them. But for me, and I'm hoping that I really believe there's a community of poker players that really love these quotes that are famous from all different walks of life, not just poker, but from self-help gurus, if you will. One of my favorites is, don't try to beat the other players, let them try to beat you. Like Phil Locke says, it's easier to win when you're winning. When you're winning, you're in a good headspace. You've got a great table persona.
Speaking about some of the best quotes in the book, I like the dedication that you made where your dad made a quote where he says, you are where your attention's at, basically. I mean, that's a very powerful quote.
And another one I love by GAVIN GRIFFIN is, and this also is in life, losing players try to make hands. Winning players try to make money.
Perfect.
Mike CARO always says it's not about how many pots you play. It's about playing the hands that you play for the maximization, right, of return on value. And so, the other part of that is patience. Phil HELLMUTH, who actually is more of an acquaintance than a good friend, but I've had some conversations with him, and he always says, that patience is, his edge.
It's a big key in poker, isn't it, patience? I mean, you're going to get dealt good cards eventually, or you're going to find good spots. You don't necessarily need to rush it all the time.
Yep. I mean, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, infinite patience produces immediate results.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. You've quoted some of the best. I really like it. Like I say, I have it at the bedside table. You've got a quote in there that I'm very intrigued by. I like it. 70%, this is no limit hold'em now, 70% psychological, 20% mathematical, and 10% magical.
It is, and I think I say magical because when you're in the zone and when you're literally in that place where you feel like you're in the zone, and getting there, of course, is half the battle. But when you are, I've asked many players, you feel like it's magic. Like the cards just, you suck them out of the deck, right? Or you know exactly where everybody's out in the hand. You're reading the other players and you know exactly what they have, and you know that your hand is good, or you even know what bet to make, even on a stone-cold bluff, that you know that the other player is either going to fold or they're going to do something that's going to help you to win the hand.
All right, I want to talk about how you think poker has evolved over the years. I mean, back in the day, it was in back rooms, smoke there. I mean, they were smoking right at the table. Nowadays, aside from everyone being so much better because of all the information that's out there, they're really starting to take care of themselves. A lot of these top players are fitness nuts, and I guess on a subconscious level, that can put them in a good mood and therefore lead to better results at the table.
Oh, absolutely. Antonio Esfandiari, who is, again, an acquaintance, he is always, if you watch him at the table, he's always getting a massage, he's stretching. But the one thing that actually Antonio and Daniel Negreanu did recently is they went and did a seminar in Las Vegas that helped them with their mental aptitude. And I, too, have been doing the same kind of work for many years, and I credit Werner Erhard, who was the founder of the S training way, way back in the late 70s. And then it morphed into something called the Landmark Forum, and I had been involved in the Landmark Forum for over 30 years. And that mental aptitude, I think, is really, the physical is one side of it, but the mental aptitude and the mental training has come leap years and bounds. You can learn the math in the game, you can learn the probabilities, you can learn all of that, but there's this one thing that you can't learn, and it has to be discovered for yourself. And that discovery is how you, who you are in that game, play your best. And so these quotes taken from all of these people that have been their best in life just enhance that intuitive side, that other side that is inexplicable, unexplainable, the magical side, right? Just feel it. And we don't talk about feel. We talk about feel in poker, but we don't really dissect it. What is it? It's that subconscious, intuitive feeling that you get and you know you're right, but how many times do you act on it?
Where can we get the book? How do people find it? And tell us more about Poker Samadhi in Las Vegas.
You can get the book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon.com. Just look up Poker Samadhi. You can also get it at Avery Cardoza's Gamblers Book Club. And you can also just go to www.poker, P-O-K-E-R, Samadhi, SAMADHI.com, and it'll take you right to Amazon through there. And you can join our Facebook page as well. I'm writing a book with Tom McEvoy right now. So the second edition is going to be Poker Samadhi, the Tom McEvoy edition, and I'll be working with lots of other poker players in the future to do each edition with their poker dharma and their poker mantras. And it's really meant to be a legacy of their intuitive and, if you will, spiritual side of the game.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Derek.